Welcome back to the Bro Show College Football Playoff second round edition. Solo show today, just me. If you're looking for Chad's picks, though, don't worry. I got them down in the description for you. So check them out there. But I'm going to give you a breakdown of all four of these playoff games, all being held at neutral site at big bowl stadiums. It's going to be a very, very exciting round. The first round was very, very good if you were a better on favorites. All four favorites not only won outright, but all of them covered. And it just seemed like in the majority of these games, the teams that had the home field advantage really took advantage of it. And the home field crowds really came into effect. You know, I was at the Indiana Notre Dame game, and that game was actually the most competitive of all of them by the final score, only being a 10-point loss for my Hoosiers after some garbage time magic. But Notre Dame just seemed like they were bigger, faster, stronger than IU. Penn State seemed like they were bigger, faster, stronger than SMU. I mean, Ohio State seemed like they were bigger, faster, stronger than Tennessee, and that is a SEC team that had a lot of success and a lot of big-time recruits and athletes on that team. Texas and Clemson, 14-point game. I mean, it was a lot of blowouts. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the second round. But as always, if you want to bet any of these second-round matchups or any of your favorite sports, whether it be NBA, college basketball, NFL, go to BroThrow.com/YouTube to sign up today for absolutely free to get access to the site with the best odds on the market, plus 100 for every spread and over/under. BroThrow.com/YouTube. Well, let's get into the second round games. First off, we are starting off with the Penn State Boise State matchup. That, of course, taking place at the Fiesta Bowl in Phoenix, Arizona. Should be a very, very fun game. We know that Boise State has had a lot of success in the Fiesta Bowl in the past. I mean, that was their spot of the famous hook and ladder against Oklahoma with a huge, huge comeback victory. One of the biggest upsets in the history of college football. But I don't really see that happening against Penn State. You know, we saw in the first round with the Penn State versus SMU game, the Indiana Notre Dame game, and even to an extent, the other two games as well, that, you know, it just doesn't matter what your scheme is. It doesn't matter the success you've had against other opponents this year. When the offensive and defensive lines are just bigger, stronger, and faster, it's very, very hard to generate success. Boise State, as we all know, is led by Ashton Jeanty, the best running back in the country, the number 2 finisher for the Heisman Trophy this season. And he is one of the most successful running backs in the history of college football. He has a chance to actually break the outright record if things go well and Boise State makes it pretty far. But his numbers, if you look at the gambling line, this is a very, very low compared to what it normally is. You normally see him around like 180, 190, and this game he's only at 126. And that's because I think there's, you know, the books expect that Penn State is going to stack the box and say, listen, if Maddox Madsen is going to be the guy to beat us, then so be it. But we're not going to let Jeanty break 7 or 8 tackles on his way to the end zone. We're going to gang tackle him and get him down and stop him behind the line of scrimmage, ideally. Boise State, they're in the Mountain West. They went against Mountain West competition. I know they played Oregon early on in the season and played well against them, but Penn State has been in the trenches in the Big Ten and playing a lot stronger, tougher guys that are on the Penn State team. The Boise State team, excuse me. Boise State is number 2 in the country this year in sacks. But again, I think going against a very, very strong Penn State offensive line, it's going to be very difficult for them to generate the type of pressure that they're normally used to. And that's going to hurt them in coverage if Penn State's offensive line is able to give Drew Aller a lot of time. Drew Aller has been peaking at the right time. He's been playing a lot of really good football recently. He played very well in the Big Ten championship game against Oregon. And again, last week against SMU, he was in full command of the offense. Penn State has 2 really solid running backs in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. The tight end of the year in Tyler Warren. He won the Mackey Award for the best tight end in the country. So we know this is a Penn State team with tons of talent going against a Boise State team who is really a one-man show. And if they fall too far behind, it's going to be very difficult, in my opinion, for them to catch up. You know, a lot of people like to talk down on James Franklin for his lack of winning in big games. And while heretofore that has been relatively true, he did get the monkey off his back by beating SMU last week. He does have the playoff win. I'm not necessarily going to say that James Franklin is going to choke in the spot against Boise State. Give me Penn State -11 here in this game in the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State Boise State Fiesta Bowl takes place Tuesday night on New Year's Eve. So hopefully everybody watch this game, goes out, has fun. Stay safe if you're going out on New Year's Eve. But then everybody heads back to their couches New Year's Day. College football, the big games of the year. Of course, New Year's Day, always one of the best days of the year for college football. And we kick off Arizona State taking on Texas in the Peach Bowl. This game in Atlanta, so obviously closer to Texas. We'd expect Texas, being the bigger program with a bigger fan base, to have an edge there no matter what in the crowd. But obviously, when you talk about on the field, it's hard not to give them the edge there as well. You know, as we talked about with Boise State's a one-man team with Ashton Genty. And unfortunately, Arizona State, in my opinion, is also a one-man team with their running back, Cam Scadaboo. I think Scadaboo is a hell of a player. I think he's an absolute beast and is certainly capable of carrying teams on his back. He did it in the Big 12 championship game against Iowa State. But Texas is a much stronger defense than Iowa State. They have the Jim Thorpe Defensive Back Player of the Year in Jahdae Barron, beating out Travis Hunter for that award. They lead the country in interceptions. And Arizona State, their number one receiver in Jordan Tyson, is out for this game. He's out the entire season. He even missed the Big 12 championship game. And that's a huge loss for Arizona State, because while they do have Scadaboo, who is undoubtedly their number one player, leads them in yards and in touches, Tyson was their number one receiver, 75 catches for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns on the year. Their next receiver on the statistics board, 19 receptions, 320 yards. So big drop off in production there when they're already probably going to be struggling to throw the ball. Texas, we know on offense how strong their team is with Ewers, good receivers all throughout. Gunnar Helm, a very strong tight end. Quintavion Wisner, been playing very, very well ever since he ascended to the starting role. So I got Texas minus 12.5 here. I don't think Scadaboo is going to be enough to put the team on his back and beat Texas in this one. And similarly to the Boise State, Penn State, I just think Texas is bigger, stronger, and faster in the trenches, and it's going to be very, very difficult for Arizona State to get things done. Two big spreads in these first two games, but I'm riding both favorites to continue the blowout streak that we've kind of seen thus far in the college football playoff. Thankfully, the next two games seem to be a little bit more competitive, certainly on the spread. We've seen this matchup in the Rose Bowl, Oregon versus Ohio State, once already this season. Oregon at home defeated Ohio State by one measly point. Why? Because Ohio State quarterback Will Howard slides, not able to get the field goal off in time. I mean, they were close. They would have had a chance to win the game with a walk-off field goal. And we know it's very difficult to beat a team twice in one season. So that's why I think it's, people may be a little surprised to see that Ohio State is actually favored by 2.5 points in this game. But to me, it makes a lot of sense. And I actually am riding with Ohio State. I think that they learned a lot that they can work on through that loss. And obviously through the loss to Michigan, they have been very galvanized and motivated. They put an absolute beatdown on Tennessee. If they play the way they play against Tennessee, they will beat everybody in the country, period. We know that they have unlimited talent on all sides of the ball. We know that they are one of the most expensive rosters in the history of college football, thanks to the new NIL program. And it's really down to, do they have the coaching? Do they have the motivation? Do they have the execution to get it done? Oregon is no slouch of their own right. They have great coach in Dan Lanning. They have a ton of NIL money and a ton of really, really great players, funded by Phil Knight and Nike. But I still like Ohio State in this game. I think that ultimately the loss for them in the first game is going to be the difference here. They're going to learn from those mistakes, and they're able to, improve marginally more so than Oregon is able to do. This game is going to be in the Rose Bowl. It should be an absolute classic. It's somehow we do get the Big 10 versus Pac-10 matchup in the Rose Bowl, even though they both are Big 10 teams. Oregon, their first year out, making it back. Very, very excited for this one. I think you're probably going to see a lot of people split on this game. It's very, very tough to call. I would not be surprised to see Oregon win this game in the slightest, but I'm going to ride with Ohio State minus 2.5 here. I think the under could also be a really strong play. We know that playoff games, defense goes up. The first game was well over this total at 63. So they're basically, the books are predicting this game is going to be a touchdown less than there was in the first game. Ohio State with one of the best defenses in the country. I could see both teams slowing it down with the run. Under 56 would be a look, but my official pick that I'm locking in, Ohio State minus 2.5. Finally, the last game in New Orleans, the Sugar Bowl. Georgia taking on Notre Dame. Georgia, surprising to some, is a 1-point favorite. Now, why would that be surprising given they got the bye? Given they're the SEC champions? Well, Carson Beck, their starting quarterback the entire season, out. He is done for the season with an injury that he suffered in that SEC championship game. And in comes Gunnar Stockton with all the experience of the second half of football in that game, and that is it. Notre Dame looked great against Indiana, but Georgia, in my opinion, is a much different team. They're going to have a much more difficult time in Notre Dame, as I'm talking about, in getting pass rush, especially without blitzing. Notre Dame did a great job against IU at getting pressure with only 4, but now their best defensive lineman, Riley Mills, is injured. He got hurt against IU. He is missing this game. Georgia with a much better offensive line than Indiana. And I think that Georgia is actually a sneaky pick in this game. You know, I don't really care that they have a backup quarterback. Do you think Georgia recruits 2- and 3-star guys? They only recruit the best of the best. So I have no doubt that Gunnar Stockton is a ton of talent. And we saw him play pretty well in that game against Texas coming in on short notice. Now he's going to have an entire month. They've been off for a month to that SEC championship game of taking the first team reps, of getting intimate work with the quarterbacks coach, with the offensive coordinator, with Kirby Smart himself, as he is the number one guy and the guy that they need to rely on. So him getting this intense coaching scrutiny, him getting all the number one reps, he's going to be good to go. This is a guy that has a lot of talent, and Georgia's going to figure out a game plan that utilizes his strengths and hides his weaknesses. Notre Dame is a run-heavy team that likes to play defense and play with the lead. If they fall behind, it can be more difficult for them to catch up. So, you know, in a game where it's supposed to be competitive, I don't necessarily know that we could say they're going to be playing from ahead and playing that most optimal game script. Jeremiah Love, their number one running back, he had that 98-yard touchdown against Indiana and still had under double-digit carries in that game. It seems like he's still injured and not 100%. So without him going at 100%, I think I have to lean towards Georgia in this game, even with the backup quarterback. That is going to do it for my picks on these games. I think that they're going to be all super entertaining, and I'm very excited, especially for the Ohio State, Oregon, and Georgia Notre Dame matchup. Again, my picks in these games, ironically, I ended up being on all favorites: Georgia at -1, Ohio State -2.5, and then Texas, Penn State. Feel very strong about it. In my opinion, Penn State, my favorite overall pick of the video. Let me know in the comments what your favorite pick is for the College Football Playoff Round 2 and any other bowl games that you're interested in betting. It's been an amazing bowl season, both in terms of entertainment and in terms of picks. If you're following me on Twitter at snowman_sports, we've been on a very, very hot streak betting on college football. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Bro Show. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Again, if you want to place all your action on any of the games I talked about, or your favorite team in NBA, NFL, college basketball, hockey, go to brothrow.com/YouTube to sign up today for absolutely free. Chat sticks we posted down below, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.